The Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby now. John, thanks so much. The head of NATO said today that he expects Russia to mount a major offensive down in the Donbass region. Is that Putin's next play?
That's what we think is going to happen here in the next days and weeks, Shep. We have seen the Russians begin to reprioritize the Donbass region, the eastern part of the country, as well as the south. As you know, they have withdrawn their forces from places like Kyiv and Chernihiv. We think they're going to refit, resupply, reinforce those units, and then apply them into that part of the country for a renewed offensive. Now, what's not clear, Shep, is whether this is the end-all goal, that he just wants to occupy that Donbass region and call it a day, or whether he's going to use that as a negotiating chip for more leverage as they work out some sort of a peace settlement, or whether he's just going to try to get that territory so that he can then move further west inside Ukraine. It's not clear, but clearly we have seen signs that the Russians are going to reprioritize that part of the country. We
know the Pentagon sent more javelins and that they've been helpful, but what about the S-300 anti-aircraft missile systems that the Ukrainians have been asking for? Is the U.S. going to help Slovakia get those into Ukraine?
We are working with a range of allies and partners, not just one, but several, who have these systems to see if they'd be willing to provide them to Ukraine.
Well, the Slovaks say that they are, and the Ukrainians say it's urgent. So what's the delay?
Well, we're working this out with each of these individual countries as best we can. They have their own decision-making processes that they have to go through. We want to let them speak to that. What I can tell you is that we're working closely with them. Again, it's not just one country, it's several, to see if they'd be willing to provide these systems. And then, of course, part of that is what the United States could do to backfill that capability, to make it easier for them to give them to Ukraine, because the Ukrainians know how to use it. So, again, I think there's more to come here. We're working this very, very hard.
Sounds like you're close. Fair?
Well, I think I would just say we're working this very, very hard.
All right. The retired Army General Barry McCaffrey said today the way to Ukraine loses this is for it to turn into a war of months and years. Do you agree with him?
I think the longer this goes, clearly it's going to be harder for the Ukrainians who are trying to go on the offense, but by dint of the overwhelming superiority in numbers that the Russians have are largely on the defense. So the longer it goes, the harder it's certainly going to become on the Ukrainians, no question. But I would also say that the longer it goes, the harder it's also going to be on the Russians. I mean, just look at what they didn't do in the last month. They didn't take Kyiv. They didn't take Kharkiv. They didn't take Chernihiv. They achieved almost none of the outcomes that they wanted to. They're still fighting over Mariupol. And this is why we think they're going to focus on that eastern geography, that smaller part of Ukraine, because they think that they'll have more success there. But the Ukrainians have been fighting over that ground for 8 years, bravely and defiantly. And there's no sign that the Ukrainians are going to give up. I'll tell you this, no matter how long this goes, we're going to try to continue to get the Ukrainians the material they need to fight, the weapons, the systems they need, as much as we can, as fast as we can. We're still going to help them defend themselves.
John, you've heard the detractors say the Pentagon and the White House really want this to continue. And that's why you're not giving them the air superiority. That's why you're not giving them more capability to take jets out of the sky, because this long, degraded thing is going to hurt Putin, hurt his regime, and have the potential for a regime overthrow. That's what the naysayers are doing. Is it not true? You don't want this to continue for a while, right?
I'm very sorry and extremely disappointed to hear people would actually argue that we somehow want this war to continue, that we want to see civilians killed. We want to see millions of people flown into refuge. That's absolutely not true, and it's unthinkable to us. We want to see this war end now, and it could end now if Mr. Putin would do the right thing, withdraw all his forces, and sit down in good faith with President Zelensky. He's obviously shown no willingness to do that. So what we're going to do is continue to make sure that Ukraine can defend itself. And look, Shep, the success that the Ukrainians have had on the field, as devastating as these images are to look at, the success they have had is not an accident. It's because of their courage, their skill, but the material and the weapons that we're providing them, but also the training that they have gotten over the last 8 years from the United States and other allies. It's no accident that they have been so skillful in the field. We're going to continue to try to to help them with that capability going forward. We don't want to see this war go one day more, and I think it's shameful that others would somehow argue that we're benefiting from this.
John Kirby, thanks so much.